Hi everybody, I see you all coming into our session. You can just bear with us for a couple of minutes because there are more people coming along all the time, and we'll just give them a couple of minutes to come in. Hope everybody's been enjoying the festival today. Just coming up towards the end of our first day. I hope some of you will join us at the social at 7 o'clock this evening, which will be fun-packed, I can guarantee. Okay, I think we'll start if that's okay. Welcome to the session, which we're calling Towards the Win-Win, Promoting Independence, part of the solution for better and more sustainable social care. And I'm really pleased to have my friend and colleague, John Bolton, here with us. And we're going to do this mostly as a kind of interview, question and answer session to suck out of John's head all his learning and experience on this topic over I think it's fair to say, many years, John. Yeah.
Yep.
But first, I'm sorry for people who've experienced this several times at the festival. I'm going to do the housekeeping stuff. So let's see if I can get my slides to move. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So welcome to our session on promoting independence. As usual, if anybody's struggling, there's a phone number there where Wendy will help. Just to remind you, we're recording the session. We're recording all the sessions. So if you're not supposed to be here, hide. If something you want to say you wouldn't want heard by other people, don't say it. Yep, we're recording. Please, it can be hard to get your voice heard. Use different ways of getting your voice heard, and we'll try our best to spot it and listen to you. But we have been using yellow cards and rubber ducks and bananas, anything yellow, to get people's voices in. And we will be keeping the session to time. It says we'll end at 4:15, but actually we're going to end at 4 o'clock. I hope that's okay with everyone. And this is because over at NCAS, our parallel conference this week, the Minister for Social Care is speaking at 4 o'clock. So we think some of you might want to go and have a listen to Helen Whately. So we'll finish in time for you to do that. I'm on slides. There we go. You know the basics by now. Stay on mute during the kind of sessions the parts of the session that's appropriate for. Turn your video on if you want us to see you, but if you do go for a snack or something, switch it off. Choose gallery view if you want to see everybody, or speaker view, just a big picture of the person that's speaking. Go to preferences if you're having volume issues. And that's it for, you'll be glad to hear, that's it for the housekeeping. So I just wanted to say a little bit about why we wanted to include this session in the festival, because in some respects it's a slightly unusual session for Social Care Future. And it comes back to our vision, which I'm sure everybody has seen by now. We all want to live in the place we call home, with the people and things that we love, in communities where we look out for one another, doing things that matter to us. That's our vision. We want social care to help that to happen for us all. Some of you will have joined the joint session we had on the first day of NCAS yesterday, where we shared this vision, and we had a really good session with colleagues from NCAS. And quite understandably, there are a lot of comments from people attending the session who basically said, that vision looks good, we agree with that vision, and there's all sorts of practical challenges and obstacles in the way of us achieving it, not least the issue of money. We haven't got enough money. Where do we get money from? What do we spend money on? And I wanted to do this session because I think sometimes there's a bit of a danger that we're kind of in two worlds. So many of us that are part of Social Care Future are quite rightly focused on our experience and the experience of our friends and families using the social care system, and we want it to be better, and we want the appropriate money to be spent on it. There's another world, which is people who are running social care systems with that haven't received significant increases in funding over many years, struggling to get people what they need and to focus the money in the areas they'd like to focus. And these are both realities. And what we've really got to try and do is get more money into the system, but then we've got to get this win-win where we use the money really well. And by really well, we mean both efficiently and in ways which enable people to live their own lives and control their own lives, and be less likely to end up using more institutional services, which is often not the right thing, and where people don't want it very often. So I've asked John to share his experience with us. Many of you on the session will know John already, but for those that don't, John has worked in social care for many years and was director of social care in Coventry for quite a few of those years. And both then and since has had a particular focus on helping people who are running social care to use the money well. And as I said, that doesn't just mean saving money or reducing spend. It means using it really well on helping people to live good lives. And as we move forward, bringing our vision into reality, we're going to really need to think about using money well. So I'm really looking forward to this, asking John questions and getting you to ask John questions and listen to the answers. For some of you will have seen some of John's previous work, much of it written with the IPC at Oxford Brookes University, and you can just Google John and IPC and you'll find some great stuff. But anyway, that's enough for the intro. That's okay. So, John, say hi to everybody.
Right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you, Martin. It's really, really nice to be able to share some of my thinking today. So what I've been doing, really, as Martin says, is looking at how to make the best use of the money. Slightly sadly, actually, sometimes it has meant that people have had to make savings. When I started thinking about these things, it was before austerity was the order of the day. And I just wanted to make sure we made the best use of the money in order to make sure that people were getting the right help. The basis of what I'm going to talk about is very clear in the Care Act. So the Care Act 2014, in particular, it requires council to help people in a way that reduces or delays their need for permanent care. And I found that the best way of doing that, next slide, Martin, please, is through a set of interventions, a set of help, a set of way of working with people that is loosely called promoting independence. And the basic principle of the message is that people shouldn't be receiving long-term care when they first come for help without having a period that looks to support them to see whether there are levels of recovery, rehabilitation, or this new word, reablement, to see if they can regain or recapture skills they have lost or to find new skills. And the basic principle of that is that often people, when they first come to social care, real difficulties, something's happened to them, some event, and they've lost confidence, they've lost skills, they've lost physical skills. But sometimes people can be helped. They can be helped to change that, to change what's happened. And it's really important, I feel, that you give people that opportunity before they're set up with the kind of longer term help that they may and support they may need. But actually, this same principle should apply to everyone who is living with long-term conditions. One of the things I found in social care is people in social care, professionals, use the term maintenance to support people longer term. And I didn't like that concept. I thought everybody who social care is involved in supporting we should always be looking to work with that person to help them manage as best they can so they can maximize their opportunities for independence. And that should apply to all people who are receiving support long-term and who are linked to the care and support system. Everybody should be given the maximum opportunity towards independence. And I found in my early career in social care, too often there were institutional solutions for people that were just not really helping people find those opportunities. So there tends to be 4 different terms used. So it's often about language, and we know from when I listen to your work, I hear language being so important. So there's older people who come to social care for help. Many of them are frail, or they've had some incident that has happened to them, as I described earlier. But actually, there's really good evidence that people can be helped to regain skills, regain strength, create new networks of support, build confidence if that's lost. And I certainly find that in my personal life with relatives as well as in my professional life. But for older people, they have ups and downs, and actually it's supporting the best possible way to help people maximize so that they spend more time in the ups. It isn't appropriate for everybody. None of these things are, but actually a lot of people will benefit from it. Secondly, we find that younger adults who, say, acquire a new disability or have a disability, they should also be offered services in a way that helps them to cope with that disability. Now, lots of people know the practical things people can be helped with that support their with aids and adaptations and equipment and technology. They're all important parts of that. Again, sometimes for some people, they need help with their confidence, with their personal goals. But I believe everyone with whom the care system is working should be working with any individual to help them set their own goals as to what they want to achieve, and they should be supported to achieve those goals, very much in line with the ambitions that Social Care Future states. Equally, same applies for younger adults with a learning disability. They should be helped to progress, to maximise their potential for independence. Too many end up in places where they're cared for, protected, looked after, but not helped to progress. I want to see more progression. And then finally, in the field of people who have mental ill health, they should be helped to recognise the symptoms they have, recognise what it is that causes the stresses that might drive those symptoms, to develop techniques to both recognise the signs that bring on their illness and to develop techniques to reduce those signs, and to develop a network of people, which might include professionals, who are able to help them when they know their symptoms are putting their mental health at risk. And there's a whole set of evidence for all of these 4 areas, and the last one called recovery, that really shows that it actually can help people and help people better manage and help people reach the aspirations of a better life. The people we find who really most benefit from this are older people being discharged from hospital. If this is offered to them, we see a lot of benefit. Older people at risk of being admitted to a care home, it could be the same group. We find those places that adopt these principles have a significant reduction. Sorry, can we just go back a slide? A significant reduction in admissions to care homes. Particularly younger adults with moderate conditions, enormous benefits for people's active lives in their communities. And for younger adults who want to be more independent. And I particularly have over time seen some really good work done in helping people move from care homes into their own homes, living in the community, living a more fulfilled life, even people being helped into employment. And then finally, a group that I touched on already, people who newly acquire a disability, who need particular support in coming to terms, living with that, and managing that and making sure they have all the right opportunities. So what I found is councils who adopt this approach, first of all, they do have 5 fewer people living in residential care, and that saves councils significant sums of money. If you look at the spend that local authorities spend on social care, usually, not everywhere, the highest proportion of that spend goes in spending on residential care. And certainly when I was a director, we significantly reduced spend on residential care, and places I work with now do the same. And of course, if we can reduce that expenditure, we can also then improve outcomes for people, and we can we can save the money but improve the outcomes for people to be more active in their communities. One of the things we've developed and trying to work on is a model called outcome-based commissioning, and that's trying to focus where people work towards setting their own aims and goals and making sure the service that is being given to support them is actually working with them to achieve the goals that they set. So I would contend that if actually we everywhere was adopting this approach, we would find there was less pressure on their social service budget, and they're able to target their resources much better. And that is, of course, really important, and it has been really important. I would suggest that probably most councils say they do some of these things. And my experience is some places do some of the things well, some places do them badly, and some places don't really do them at all well in any case. The evidence is from the work that we do is about 2/3 of people who are close to or need care and support would benefit from this approach. It's not the case for everybody. We might need to, and we have been thinking about different approaches, for example, for people with dementias, people with progressive conditions that from which people may find that life just gets more challenging and it's difficult to use these kind of help. But it does help us focus on the goals and aims that people have for themselves, and it delivers significant reductions, as I've already said, in the costs of care, probably something in the region of 5 to 10% of a local authority's budget can be saved, and that then ensures the resources that are available be spent on people who do need the long-term support. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so we can bring people in. So folks, I've got things that I want to ask John, but I expect you have as well. So if you've got a question, can you put it in the chat? Let me just see if I can change my view so I can see more of you as well. Yes, I can see lots of people now. I'm gonna, because there are so many of you here, it might be difficult for me to see everybody's hands, but I'll do my best. So let me just have a see what people have said in the chat to start off with. It's not necessarily all about money. It's all about getting rid of a system that doesn't work and co-producing new ways of doing things. Always have an opportunity to re-enable, even if it's as small as holding your own drink. Achievements give a buzz, and some agreement with that. So can I just see, I've got plenty of questions to ask, but let me just see if there is anybody who wants to raise their hand and ask John a question about what he's just set out. Okay, I see Russell. Anybody else? There's lots of people who don't have their screens on, so you'll have to have your screen on for me to be able to see.
I've got a hand for Heather.
Hand. Okay. Where's Heather? Right. Okay, so let's go Russell and then Heather.
John, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
I'm from the Wirral, and I know I've got Martin as a friend now, right? I live in supported living, and I know people in learning disabilities. I know it's like there's like certain day centres on the Wirral, and people used to get money for going there, but all the money's stopped now.
So what's the question, Russell?
I'm just saying to
Did the money
John,
be stopped?
right? I used to go to a day centre in the Wirral.
Yeah.
And you used to get £2.85 for going there.
Yeah, I remember those days when people used to be paid what, and I guess people pretended that that was a wage, wasn't it? But it was just
yeah, but it's
a
not.
little bit of money. Yeah.
Well, the council stopped them years ago.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a strong point. Heather, you have to unmute if you want to ask a question. Well done, Heather. Very good.
Yeah, so I think this point came to me when I came out of hospital, because often I was being told by the care assistants that why wasn't I on reablement, why was I on a long-term care assistant plan? Well, it's because I've got cerebral palsy as well as just having spinal surgery. But the question is kind of, do you think that the costs of things should be discussed with the people that are receiving the support in this cost-effective way that it's discussed, rather than the small benefit? Like, I may need long-term care for the rest of my life, and that's probably what's going to happen. But there are some re-enablement benefits that will happen. I did get some small gains from doing an energy management course. I did get some small gains from going to physio. But it seems to be this weird discussion between, you either go on re-enablement for a short period of time and that's all you get, or you get the other. And I don't know if that's just where, the area I'm in, or because I'm a woman, because I've found that the difference between, but that's a discussion for a different day and a different.
Yeah, let's.
But yeah, it's the main.
Responding to that then, Heather. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, there's two quite different questions there. Let's start with day centres and money. Day centres have played an important part in the lives of people, particularly with learning disabilities. In fact, when I was a young social worker, they were day centres for everybody. Interestingly, most of those day centres have gone because the view emerged that actually people wanted more wider opportunities than the day centres offered. People wanted to be engaged in much more in their communities, in activity and in the things that everybody did. So the question about, well, what then happens to day centres for people with learning disabilities in particular? And they still thrive and they still play an important role. I suppose my main issue is the day centre helping that person maximise their opportunities for independence? And certainly when I was a director, I used to visit our day centres and talk to the people who attended them. And there were always, probably about a third of the people who were there wanted to be in work and wanted help to be in work. And we didn't seem to be very focused on helping them find employment, proper employment. And that concerned me. So I wasn't that keen on the small payments that were made. I thought we actually should be focusing for those who wanted work. We should be looking and working with them to ensure that they could find opportunities for work, that the day centre wasn't necessarily the right long-term place for them. Now, the one thing I did discover as we helped people, a small number of people into work, was the day centre was a really important support network for people, so beyond just what the day centre itself did. So it is important people have networks of support. It is important people have friendships outside of work, but it's also important that where that is the right objective of people, that they have proper paid work and that we don't give a token £2 or £3 to somebody for attending something which actually isn't work. So I suppose I'm not necessarily in favour of paying people where actually I want to see if I can help them. If I can, if I can't, I have to accept that and understand I've then got to look for other opportunities. But I'd still be looking for opportunities in communities. There are councils that do much more for people to engage in their communities, for example, than to engage in the day centre. On the hospital and the reablement, well, I agree with Heather. Reablement isn't necessarily, a lot of people run a 6-week reablement programme. That's fine. You know, that's important. It's important for people, particularly at the point of discharge from hospital. But actually, I believe the principles of promoting independence that I'm talking about should actually be available to everybody all the time. But for everybody who is close to or needs some kind of support service, the opportunity to look at how they're going to progress, and whether it's the small things that somebody referred to about holding a cup, being able to be helped to ensure they could do that, to bigger things like being able to get out and about on their own, whatever it is, we should be working with people, allowing them to set their objectives and working with people to support those. That's the principle that we're trying to talk to. And it's not just a 6-week little bit of help just to get you back on your feet. It's a lifetime support deal that we should have with all customers.
Thanks, John. And there's quite a few questions and points coming through in the chat now. A couple of questions / challenges about outcomes-based commissioning. So one from Harriet, where she says, a problem with outcomes-based commissioning can be that when things don't go so well, organisations feel that they can't be transparent with their data. How do you tackle this? And another one from Julie and Sam, outcomes-based does not work because councils give you a list of the outcomes to pick from, not the individual's own.
Okay, I mean, with all things, some things are done well and some things are done badly. I'm working with a set of care providers in the Vale of Glamorgan, so in Wales, not in England. And there, the council has allowed, that's the right word, has empowered the customers and the home care organiser to have a discussion between the two of them as to what the expectations and aspirations are. There is no list, there is no limit. The person has their personal budget and they can discuss that with their care organiser as to how they want that money spent, how they want the care to be provided, and what they want to do with the time that's available. And I think that is by far what I see the best way to develop an outcomes-based model. And the outcomes might change. People might want one thing over a period of time, they want to change it, that's fine. And as long as the person working with the customer, with the person who is being supported, as long as that person is clear what they want. Sometimes people need a bit of a nudge. Sometimes people aren't clear what they want for themselves because they've, I don't know, particularly say if they've been an institution, they've been limited in their horizons. Sometimes people need encouraged to think beyond the horizon. But many people, most people, actually do know what they want to achieve. And if it's set up appropriately, it can be done and be very successful. And very interestingly, certainly in the Vale of Glamorgan, actually we found as people achieve their aspirations, as people do more, are more active, ironically, they need less care because they're more fulfilled, they're more feeling confident, more feeling in control. Actually, they then say, well, maybe I don't need 3 visits 7 days a week. I can cope with less because I've actually built my own network. I've got other things I now can do. I've got my own support. I'll need some support, but maybe I need less. That's a very common experience.
I guess that's the kind of win-win that we're talking about, isn't it, John?
Yes.
Karen says, I think sometimes it's about a culture change too. People are often used to doing things in a certain way. They need to be open to change, and individual strengths and wishes need to be recognised and heard, rather than thinking that as a professional you know best. Any reflections on that? Yeah,
I mean, in a way, my early days, I have disability in my family, relations, close relations, blood relations. And I suppose right from the beginning of starting work, I had a kind of view that actually this philosophy, though I don't think I'd worked it out at that stage, is what I wanted to achieve. And I was staggered the way I was encouraged to assess people and the way that most of the solutions available to me are what I'll call institutions. And those institutions were set up in a way that just made people dependent on them, didn't encourage them to do things differently. So actually, by the time I became a director, I was very clear that I wanted things to change. I wanted a different kind of social care system. And that's what I've tried in my limited way to achieve, both when I was a director, but even more now I'm working with a whole range of different people, continuing those messages in councils, with health, with communities, with voluntary sector. Those are the key messages I want to give.
Thanks. We've got Dean saying, everything you talk of, John, sounds like what the shared lives model can deliver. Why doesn't that get promoted as it should be by local authorities?
I agree. The shared lives is a very good model. Actually, I'm just going to say something, because it applies to a lot of these current models: shared lives, supported living, extra care housing. They're all really good new approaches to social care if they're run with the right philosophy. And I'm saying that because actually I come across modern setups, whatever they are, supported living, where actually people are running supported living as if it was a residential care home. They're not helping people to maximise their opportunities for independence. They're making people dependent on the carers. And I see that in sometimes with personal assistance, and I have seen that in shared lives. Now, that doesn't mean in any sense that I'm against shared lives. I'm a massive fan of shared lives. I think it's a really good model if it's being run correctly, and people are supported in a shared life with the opportunities to maximise their independence. Thanks.
There's one that might be interesting to you here, John, which I guess is a criticism of a kind of assessment-based system. Tony says, what frustrates me is that people have to fulfill a criteria to access a service like diagnosed mental health condition, where other people could benefit it and want to access it. How can we make the system more flexible so that it's not dependent on that kind of process?
You'll get me on one of my favourite topics now, which is my critique of the Care Act. Yeah. I think the Care Act's got lots going for it, but I do think it replicated the mistake of the 1990s, which is this whole domination of the concept that there is such a thing as a simple assessment that can be done in a moment of time that determines the help people need, and you either fit in or you don't fit in. I think that's wrong. I think that's fundamentally wrong. I think actually, if we want to assess, if that's the right word, someone, that takes place over time. That's a journey that people are going through. And as I've already said, for example, in old age, people have good days and bad days. They have good months and bad months. People have ups and downs. I don't want to be assessed on my worst moment, nor do I want to be assessed on my best moment. I want to understand how those moments work up and down, and how my support needs might best be met to accommodate the ups and downs of my life, and why that's different from somebody else. And I've seen that really vividly in the last year or so with my father-in-law, who I visit once a week, and probably not allowed to now, am I? But I have been visiting once a week, and I see how he copes, but how life has changed. He has moderate dementia, but he's found the best way to cope with that, get the right kind of support he needs, but he has ups and downs. He's not the same every day or the same every week. I remember sitting in when an OT came to assess him, which was a fine task. But actually there was so little she discovered about him and his ups and downs in the hour of the assessment. So I'm not a fan of this idea that we can assess people one day, find them eligible or not, whatever that means, and give them particular services, and they then have the same service for the rest of their lives or not, depending. That for me is not good social care. Unfortunately, the law requires that's the way local authorities behave. I think that's, for me, that needs challenging. And I wrote a long piece and sent it to the Department of Health where I saw the draft of the Care Act. And they very politely said, thank you, John, that's very interesting. But unfortunately, it's probably too late.
Thanks, John. Joe, I see you with your finger up for quite a while. I'm glad your finger's that way around. If you want to unmute, then you can ask a question.
Thanks very much, Martin. Thanks very much, John. Very helpful. Just want to say, John, that I for the last 10 years with my partner, have been supporting our mum in her own home. She has Alzheimer's, but for the last 5 years, we've been subjected to the nightmare of continuing healthcare funding. And my question really is around the so-called multidisciplinary teams of social workers and health professionals, which to me has actually been it's grossly maladministration, malpractice, systematic lies that we've been subjected to. And I just find that has completely undermined my confidence in any local authority to provide support. Would you say, John, or do you actually come across systematic lying in order to prevent people getting the support that they're legitimately required to have?
Okay, I better be careful how I phrase this. I agree with you, Joe, that sometimes people who are being assessed are misled.
We're very grateful
About the opportunities that are open to them or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, we've got something come on
Right,
the line that.
I've just muted Dame Philippa for you, John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So sometimes people I do understand sometimes people feel and are actually misled by what's available to them. There's a piece of work I was reading recently which showed that actually social workers didn't know about half the resources that are available for the people that they should be advising and offering support to. So it's a big challenge to how do people ensure they know what's available, that the right things are available, and people get the right help in the right way. I think that's a big challenge in the system.
Thanks, John. Clinton, I think you were trying to get in and ask a question. Are you there? Can you unmute and ask your question?
Hi, John. Thanks for the presentation. You mentioned about the CARE Act and promoting independence. I'd be interested to know your thoughts about the missed opportunity of enshrining Article 19 of the UN Convention and the rights for disabled people, which defines independence for persons with disability as having individual autonomy and the opportunity to be actively involved in decision-making processes and opportunity to experience physical and social and economical and cultural environments. What's your thoughts on, you mentioned that the CARE Act and promoting well-being. What's your thoughts?
Right, Clinton, I heard your very articulate presentation yesterday, so I absolutely agree with what you were saying then, and of course you're right. And I liked the idea. Interestingly, I'm doing some work with an Australian social care system on promoting independence in Western Australia. So I think the same thinking is there. And as you rightly identified, and I did know that, what you were saying, is that the disability movement in Australia managed to show the government how it needed to treat people with disabilities and used the UN Convention Article 19 in order to do that. And I thought that was, I liked what you said yesterday. The only thing I don't like is your clock is stuck on the same time yesterday as it is today. You need some support to get the time changed. But apart from that, I absolutely agree with what you're saying.
He needs his haircut as well, John, I would say.
I had a pre-COVID haircut this week.
Is Kerry here? Kerry Armstrong? Are you still with us, Kerry?
I am. I'm here. Yes.
Right,
I'm a bit worried now.
You're being very vocal in the chat, so stick your video on. and speak to John.
Yeah, just a couple of comments really, because obviously there are lots of things we're trying in Thurrock to shift towards a different kind of system, and it has its challenges. I think one of the thoughts I was having was around obviously all the bureaucracy that we've put around the system, and just in carrying out assessments and reviews. I wonder whether there's, if we costed all of that bureaucracy, whether actually we could get to a position where we actually did remove eligibility and we were able to just make sure that we navigated or we spoke to people around kind of what they needed, and if there were any kind of formal type support needed, they had that regardless whether they would have been eligible under the terms of the Care Act. So I don't know whether any work's been done to kind of cost the system and cost how much the system actually costs out of the adult social care budget, and whether that would equate kind of dealing with people that were more eligible. And I think I did probably raise a point earlier. My brain is kind of completely shot at this time of the day, so I'm just looking.
Well, I just thought I'd better let you in, Kerry, because I saw quite a few points from you. I thought, maybe you're getting a bit hot under the collar and you really
no. The other point was about the market, wasn't it? About John's point about outcome-based commissioning. Completely agree that we should be kind of commissioning around outcomes, commissioning around flexible use of money, individual support funds that kind of get passported over to providers, to people to use as they need to, both in terms of formal and informal support. But my concern is often that we don't spend enough time articulating and being really, really clear about the vision for the future, and then what that means in terms of market development. And I really kind of strongly believe that if we don't put enough into developing the kind of market that will deliver those outcomes, and I'm not just talking about the formal market, but I'm just talking about also the market in terms of community and voluntary sector, and also how much we invest in the community and voluntary sector, then we won't be able to deliver on that promise of outcome-based commissioning. We will quite readily retreat back into formal methods of providing care solutions, and my fear is that will happen whenever there's a time of austerity, a time of economic frustration and strain. That's what tends to happen. We tend to go back to, even though we know they don't work properly, they don't provide the best outcomes, you can end up kind of retreating back to a space that doesn't deliver the best for people. So there was just something for me around actually being very clear about being what the future is, what that means for outcomes, how those outcomes are delivered, and then going back to having a very robust market development strategy. So I think I'll be quiet now. I'm not going to put anything else in the comments.
In a way, Kelly, I think you've made the point. I agree. I absolutely agree with your last set of statements. I think they're spot on. That this kind of thinking that I'm talking about needs to be prevalent everywhere. Every organisation that we work with, who are engaged in support or engaged with working with people, should be adopting these principles. So I agree with you. So I don't want to. It's really interesting. I'll be interested. You obviously work in Thurrock, do you, Kerry?
Yes, I lead on health and care transformation, so I'm kind of right in the middle of all of this.
Okay, because I visited Thurrock 2 years ago on a paper I was doing about cost-effective social care, because Thurrock came across as generally, with a couple of minor exceptions, a very cost-effective system. And one of the reasons why it came across as a very cost-effective system is because of its fantastic work on linking the council, adult social care and communities. And I thought that was really impressive. I think I've not seen anywhere as good as the story I was being told. And I have to be careful because I was listening to what people were telling me. I didn't go out and test it for myself, but the story being told by the senior managers in Thurrock about what was happening there, I thought was really, really good. And I think it set a real template of a model that can fit alongside the work I'm doing. In fact, I wrote it up in one of the papers that Martin was referring to. I wrote it up because I was impressed with it. What's about this whole issue about bureaucracy? It probably doesn't save as much money as we'd hope. It's the actual, as I indicated in my presentation, the big money in social care goes into residential care. The amount that's probably depends from council to council, varies, but it can be anything between 40 and 60% of the money goes into residential care. The cost of what you'd call the bureaucracy is somewhere probably around 12-15% of the money spent on social care. Could we change that and save that? Would that change eligibility? I'm not sure whether that alone would. But when I was a lad, we didn't have eligibility. When I was a young social worker, we didn't have eligibility. We worked with people and we found solutions for them. I'm sure there were private kind of thresholds. I think we probably did set those. But there's a lot of evidence that actually every social worker has their own threshold. And when they do assessments, they use their own threshold, whatever the law or whatever the council's rules are. Social workers have their own experience, understanding and thresholds. Is that good? It's a big question. We need everybody to have the right values and the right, then we might support that. So I'm not sure whether removing the bureaucracy, but I would be really interested in exploring, could we create a system that actually didn't require eligibility as being its prime access route? I would be very interested in that.
I just coming back. Oh, sorry. I was just going to comment on that point that actually, if you look at it from a system point of view, if you kind of lifted eligibility for adult social care and then you costed the saving to the system, so you know how much of what we don't do ends up in people kind of then needing more expensive and costly support in a hospital or health or whatever. And then we were able to kind of do a deal where the money moved across, that might kind of help with that argument as well.
That's why I argue if people could start on the basis of really looking at who really does need residential care and how we can better support people in their communities without resorting to that. And there's some really good examples of places that do that. But actually that does, I know that saves significant sums of money, which then ought to be invested, if we weren't in a period of austerity, back into making sure we have the right kind of system as you describe.
Yeah, thank you, John. And by the way, I was part of the group that you did meet 2 years ago, so I was there in Thurrock.
All right, you were there when you were. Okay, well, sorry, Kerry. I go to so many places, I should have recognised you, but great, and I was impressed.
I'm afraid we've run out of time, everybody. Sorry about that. We could carry on with this quite a long time, I think. But I think, John, there's so much interest in this conversation, I think, and particularly some of the issues, some of the big issues, I think, that have been raised, that it would be good to engage with you more between you and Social Care Future to see whether there are some things we can work on together. I get the sense that there's quite a few people on the call today that would be interested in doing that. So if we could have a separate conversation at some point relatively soon, that would be good.
Martin, you have been a colleague for, well, since we both worked in the Department of Health together. I'm very, very happy to have you as a colleague now. So absolutely great.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for coming, and thanks for your questions. Joseph, that was a thumbs up this time rather than a finger, so I appreciate that. And everybody take care, and we'll see you at more sessions today and tomorrow, and I hope I see loads of you at the social tonight. See you soon.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.